All right, hello and welcome to Startup Business Q&A. All of you over on Instagram, over on YouTube, and hello on Facebook as well. I'm just trying to get you live because you decided to be a bit rubbish. So let's try again. We seem to be live right now. That's good. So hello everyone. Welcome. So this episode 123. So 123 weeks. Great to see everyone here. And this week I actually put out a poll asking people, what do you want us to cover in this session? And overwhelmingly, people have said, let's look. I think it was, by more than 50%, people were saying, let's focus on types of content generation and types of content we can build on different platforms and things like that. So everyone bundling in on Facebook, thanks so much. So Diana, Daniel, good to see you. Bina, Ian, hello. Daphne on Instagram. Norman's here too. Route 1 million, good to see you here. Thanks so much. Waving all over as we go. Happy month 1 million, good to see you here. Thanks so much. Waving all over as we go. Happy Monday to all of you. So mad morning this morning. I was up at the crack of dawn, did work, ran over to the school after doing the school and nursery run, and then did watch the nativity play for my daughter, ran back and worked. Now we're here already 1 o'clock local, so this is unbelievable. Thanks everyone for joining in. And yeah, the questions on content types, diversification, and things like how often to do it. I think it's a really good set of questions. So thanks so much everyone who's popped in some questions already. Everyone who is listening on Facebook, can you tell me if the sound is all good? We had issues this morning. Looks like we're all fine though for now. And do like the stream. So give me a like or wave or hands up. Hello, Brandy. Just to make sure that people know that we are running. So the more you do likes and comments, the more people are aware of these streams, and it means that more can come on there. So good to see you all here. Couple of notices. Firstly, Geneva this week. I'm going to be flying out on, I'm going over to London Wednesday, flying out on Thursday, and we're going to be running it's going to be a panel on LinkedIn run by a wonderful person called Catherine Dar. So it looks like I'm going to be able to stream that live. I've asked permission. So if you follow me over, if you're on Instagram, join me over on Facebook, and I'll be able to stream that probably to the Entrepreneur Business Group. If you search for that in Facebook, so we'll run that stream on Thursday night on the 6th. In addition to that, Entrepreneur Business Live is next week on Wednesday on the 12th. This is the final one of the year. This is the 6th one we've run. I can't wait. It's going to be a really good one. This is a slightly different format this time. Obviously, it will stream again. It will be streaming to the Entrepreneur Business Group. And that one will be on social media selling. So I've got a massive influencer, in many ways a smaller but very good influencer called Lauren Tickner. So she works with personal training, health and fitness on Instagram, 126,000 followers, tremendously active, and only 21 years old. And she's getting phenomenal returns, like real hard income from this. So as a result, she's running a number of podcasts, things like that. So she can be doing talk on social selling, as will I as well. And then we're going to have a Q&A. So it should be really good fun to have that kind of format, and we'll see how that goes. Then, of course, the new year kicks off. We've confirmed now. We've got, I believe it's going to be the 16th for London, 24th for New York in January. So plenty of things to do there. Let's get into the first question from Latanya Riggs. Should your content follow the same topic for the week or just for the day? Well, what I do think is that hashtags and campaigns are a really good idea, actually, Tanya. So, for instance, a bit earlier this year on the LinkedIn platform, we had the 10 tips, 10 days hashtag. And I think that was a really nice series of content that kind of ran out across a number of days and got people quite excited. My feeling, and this is how I work, and there's many ways of doing things, I really do like having content that relates to me now in the moment. So what I'm saying is when I finish with a client tomorrow near London Bridge, I'll run some Instagram stories. I'll be walking out of the office and I'll shoot some stories and talk about what I did that day. So I think it's really great to have content that's in the moment. You can schedule and plan, sure, but I really feel that that's a nice way of sharing with an audience kind of what your vibe is on that day. So my response mostly is daily, to be honest. The main thing to remember is it should be pure signal. That's the key point. So as much as it is possible, make sure that What you're putting out is in your space. And what that means is it's not like I do one particular piece or focus or subject of content on one day or for 1 week. It's always, and that is within the space of business, startups, marketing, sales, that kind of commercializing side. That's the thing that really gets the engagement. And that's the area I know really well and have my experience with. So as a result, I tend to do, stick to that. So within it, I mean, sure, I might do a set of days or number of posts that are along a certain theme, but typically not. I don't think that matters too much. What I do though is have a hashtag that runs through a lot of my content, which is the hashtag rich tips one, because nowadays most platforms allow you to follow a hashtag. Certainly if you look at Instagram, if you look at LinkedIn, great examples of platforms where you can say this hashtag, if it ever comes up, I want to see it. And a lot of people have asked me, which is why I started in the first place, Richard, how do I make sure I see your content? And that's why the Rich Tips hashtag came about, because people actively search for it and follow it, so they get a notification when it comes up. So that works for me, to be honest. And I think it should follow the same thrust. So in terms of, say, business or entrepreneurship or life coaching or whatever you do, but you can waver off a little bit here and there from it. It's just that it should have that kind of general direction. Otherwise, it can get confusing for the audience you're going all in on and really helping out. Think about it. If you cultivate a warmth in a group of people who are in orbit around you, it really makes sense to keep validating for them the reason why they bothered to show up in the first place, which is giving them things that are of interest to them. So when you go off piece suddenly, it kind of doesn't resonate so much. So it makes sense to kind of always think about that audience you're working hard to keep interested. See yourself as a channel, like a TV channel, whatever. And if people are going to show up and tune in to watch you each week, well, what are you giving them? Why didn't you give them the same thing? That makes perfect sense. So I think that's my answer in short, I suppose, is make sure there's a trend or a thrust through all your content from all time, because it means that people know what they're showing up for. Although you can have fun things here and there as well, it makes sense that it kind of has that pure signal. So that's the way I'd look at it. Thanks again, everyone, for jumping in here. Great to see you on Instagram as well. I've just, I think I've pinned the comment. If not, then that's not making any sense to anyone. I'll just pin it now, because otherwise people don't know what we're up here for. So we're talking about content types, diversification, different platforms as well, just views on that kind of space. So let me know if you have any questions on it. Let's go on to the next one from Dot Long. I have a group of 15,000 LinkedIn members. How do I monetize it? Wow, well done. One thing's for certain, because I've not seen your group, Dot, is numbers mean nothing. Engagement means everything. I'm part of groups on Facebook, for example, that are immense, that have no engagement. I'm sure you're doing very well with engagement, because I know you quite well. And I think that the main thing to understand when you're running groups is you've got to focus as much as possible on building great engagement through compelling content. And I think that some groups are just left fallow. Some groups are spammy with memes, and it sounds cute. It sounds nice to say, well, we put out quotes and motivation. After a while, it gets a bit dull and boring, and people are like, oh, it's the same old place just for quotes. And that's all nice, but you got to have some depth to it. Otherwise, it turns into just wallpaper after a while. People scroll past this kind of thing. So what I do think is, to monetize it, you need to make sure your group is engaged. Otherwise, you can give them the best offer in the world, but you don't get enough return. Certainly, if I have 100 people who regularly engage with my stuff in a group, then I would expect to maybe see a couple of percentage points of conversion when it comes through to trying to sell something. So my advice is, just to be extreme is probably a good start, but 99% content and value and 1% harvesting. Harvesting meaning like you kind of skim something off and give an offer. Get momentum building. So get that group talking. If you're on LinkedIn, two great things to do is have conversation starters, okay, and questions. So conversation starters, like a statement, like, make a statement about something or share a piece of content or something in the news. For instance, I share a great piece of news. If you worked in cryptocurrency, you might share some news about how Bitcoin's tanking. The chief economist for UBS this week talking about how it's just like, let's just bury this Bitcoin completely. It's gone from $20,000 last year to now 3,000, whatever it is. And I think that that it would be one heck of a tweet to share that piece of news when it was talking about this interview. I think it was on CNN. And when you share something like that, it gets people talking if it's a group that's relevant. And the other thing I'd say is questions as well. So pose questions, get them engaged. When you've got a group that's engaged, what happens, Dot, is that they check you out. Because if you're the person curating that content, you're the reason why it's all happening. People will check you out, and you don't need to ask them to. So in turn, your profile needs to let them, without friction, see what it is you do. So your group has great content. They'll then want to jump over to see your profile. Who's this person again who's putting out this great content? Every time you do something interesting, more people check you out. It's just how humans are, so you need to be leveraging it. When I check out your profile, where's the link to your website? Where's the link to products or services offered and things like that? Make sure it's nice and frictionless, because from 100 people engaged in content, you might get 10 who click onto your profile. And from then 3 decide to go to your website, and then 1 perhaps buys something. Not every time, but added together with enough people in the top of the funnel, it just simply works really well. Needless to say, it's worth doing an ask every so often as well, and you build up to it. You warm up, so you need to give some teases. At this time on this date, we'll be doing this thing. It'll be a giveaway. Make sure you tune in. You'll need, all this stuff to get people engaged in that way. And the giveaway might be something of interest for people, but then that's where you can say, I'm beta launching this course or selling this product, and I'll do it for one day or whatever it might be. Something like that can really help. I think that one thing that's worked for me is launching something with some warming up as we go, getting to that point and running. You can't do it on live on LinkedIn yet, but a live stream would be a fantastic way to build a group's keenness if you're going to try and launch something, because you really get to have them on in the moment there. Morning to Michael Getty, who's just joined us. Ian, you've asked on Facebook, can you define a few types of content we can use in our development? I'm guessing you mean as development as a startup business. As far as you can, you should be looking at the contents that generate natural interest from humans, and that's video. Audio works really well because humans are also very busy in 2018, which means you need to feed them value in a way that's consumable. That's why audio works very well as well. I think you may feel that video is not your thing. I suggest you try and you get along with it. It's never nice to start with. It's always a bit weird. But once you've done 5 or 6, you start feeling quite comfortable. But I do think if I try and ask the question in a different way, Ian, because maybe if you can give some more clarity, a few types of content you can use in your development in terms of mediums. I think it is really wise to have different types of text-based content, because people do read. You need to do short copy and long copy. I found on LinkedIn that the full long copy, so 1,300 characters, really works. I just get such good engagement with it. Obviously images as well, but just remember, what does the platform look like at the moment? And if you're creating content that starts with, the first line in the same way as everyone else, the worst is when it's things like, good morning, everyone, or I hope you had a good weekend. It's like, well, I can't be bothered. Why would I read this? There's no pattern interrupt or need to do it. So that first line is really important. Look also at things like images. Are you using stock images from, royalty-free images? Because if you use stock images, you start looking a bit too generic. You look a bit adverty as well. So, use faces. There's more emotion there. Look at things like changing the kind of the setup of the actual image itself. So maybe more contrast. Try black and white. That really makes a big difference as well. When I did the YouTube thumbnail for this live stream, for example, it's rather than having just my face as the stock thumbnail, it's one with text that says what it's about in very, very few words. It's like 4 words or something. I have red bands across it because there's a pattern interrupt as well. I've changed the contrast heavily because it stops people in their tracks. Things like this do make a difference, and I think that can hopefully help too. Great to see Roger Wilson here over from the Far East, man. Thanks for staying up late to, well, it's not too late, I suppose. But what generates more sales, drinking Earl Grey or English breakfast? Well, it depends on the person who's drinking it. For me, I feel, I'm going to answer this seriously. I think that if you are an Earl Grey drinker, then actively drinking Earl Grey puts you in a good mood. And if you're in a good mood, of course, connections are improved. And as a result, you feel like you might do better. Also, if you're trying to engage with people, you feel resonate with the Earl Grey kind of drinking, Roger, it makes sense to drink that as well. You might feel at one with them too. So thanks for that. And good. I hope Bobby the Bear's going well on YouTube. Do post a link in there to the channel if you want everyone to check that out. Ernest here, you've asked a very important question. Ernest, you've asked, what are your thoughts on tagging in connections and influencers? My thoughts are that there are right ways and wrong ways of doing it. There are right ways and wrong ways of doing it. When you haven't earned the right to tag someone, and I'll explain what I mean by this in a sec, then tagging them is now spamming them. When you have a wall of tags, and I did it to experiment, but it doesn't work as well. When you have a wall of tags, what happens is, yes, some people will check it out. Yes, it can get engagement, but what does your content look like? The funny thing is, people will tag the world-class influencers, the ones with millions of followers, and just hope that that might mean they check it out. And sure, you should tag people if you want to get their attention, but with a generic post, it's not so great. And you're going to make people feel special, right? When you tag the same old, when you tag Richard Branson in a wall of 400 people, you're not shouting out, "I have a connection with this person," and it does create, I believe, a perception of your content that might not be ideal. So my thoughts on tagging connection and influencers is, sorry, you have to take the long route. So spend time in DMs, spend time connecting, spend time creating some kind of engagement with these people. Because what that allows you to do is then tag them if you feel it is relevant to them, and then they will see you. Perfect example is the other day, I tagged someone on LinkedIn, I think it was, it might have been on Facebook. And I tagged that person because I'd spent the day with them, and I tagged them because we had a connection. And I tagged them because I'm going to get a return from that tag. They're going to click on it and go, they're going to see you Richard Moore has tagged you in a comment, and they'll think, oh, cool, Richard tagged me, what's he written? Rather than roll their eyes and go, oh, there's that guy again. So be calculated there. I think it's important. If you must tag people, think about how it looks. Like, do it in the comments. Don't do it in your post. It doesn't look nearly as good, at least. With influencers, it's nice to be able to reach up to them, but you've got to give them a damn good reason to respond. That's what I would say. Okay, let's see what some of the other comments. Nice to see everyone here. So Daniel, Sushi, David's here. Roger has written in, damn right, that's why I'm an Earl Grey activist. I like it. Is the best tea, actually. I'm glad we share this view of things. Thanks for sharing your Bobby the Bear channel as well. And seriously, you need to hire Richard. Someone Richard Moore is addition to your art. Thank you very much. That's I like being an awesome addition to people's arsenal. That's good. So, next question is from Nadine Langlois, who has asked, have you ever used bots? If so, for what task exactly? Yes, I have used bots. A while back, I used bots with Instagram to see how effective it could be with DMing. So how if someone's followed you, it sends out an automatic DM. I just didn't feel it worked as well. And again, sorry, but often the manual approach just tends to work better. I will give a caveat for those who are big bot fans. I'll explain in a sec. But what I will say is that it's not difficult to open up your activity, the heart section on Instagram, and see who's followed you that day. And it's so set up now to make it simple. You can reply or write a message in line with those notifications. So you got the notification, such and such followed you. You just tap on it and you can write a message. Thanks so much for the follow, John. That was really helpful. And, it just comes across a lot better. And I think that the caveat is that if you're very, very capable with setting up bots, it is, I feel, probably when you can't move for people following you all the time, is probably a really good way to kickstart a conversation, to drop the first bit of conversation. And I think the thing is as well, look at things like Facebook pages. If you can understand that it might be quite valuable to view it as, rather than pretending that bot is human, say, hi, I'm the bot for Richard, and if you write your question, Richard will get back to you within an hour or something like that. So maybe one approach with bots, because I feel the way most people use it is to try and be a little underhand and pretend it's them being a human, is actually be clear that it's a bot. You know what I mean? I think that can work quite well. But I say for engaging, that entry point to say hi to someone is a really good way of starting. But you better pick up the rope yourself, and the manual you can't beat. You just can't. No bot is better than me when it's one-on-one with someone. Bot starts engaging with someone, and after I do it, I just win every time without question. And I do feel that people are using bots to be efficient, but they have the time to do the DMs. And what it is that the manual one-on-one is time consuming, but when you put the time in, you get so much more that I do feel, I feel that many that use bots aren't so slammed that they can't do it. I think there's just perhaps a bit of laziness. There is no way in the world that you'll be able to hack your way so much that you don't do any engagement one-on-one. I feel that it's something that's I'm not being purist. I think it's something that should feature, if I'm honest. So that's just my opinion, and the whole show is about my opinions. There we are. And I think it's worth mentioning about the whole show. This is episode 1, 2, 3. So I think that means what? So seven more weeks, and we hit 130, which means we've done 2.5 years. So that's I just want to shout out and say thanks very much. One of the reasons why people are on this every single week and joining is because people on Instagram right now have seen that there's a Facebook live as well, or they've joined from YouTube. I've got a couple here. Michelle's on YouTube right now. So having people all over, it's been phenomenal, and it's been able to kind of migrated people around and been able to kind of cross-pollinate, and that's why I've been able to go this long. So that's fantastic. Michelle said on YouTube, great content as usual. I'm your one subscriber watching live. Yeah, we've only got one at the moment. There we are. But one matters. Let's go on to the next question. We're talking about types of content today, diversification of content, and also how often to use it. Brandy Holloway has asked, what's the best ratio of curated, shared, and original content to post on LinkedIn? So I'm going to answer this the opposite way to how I instinctively want to answer it. You'll understand what that is in a sec, and say it may be, because this is worth adding, it may be that you've decided the content you want to put out there is shared content. You want to be known as the person who shares someone else's content, and that's cool. Okay. Hello, Rebecca. Nice to join. Hello, Michael, as well. Now the thing is, I had a guy the other day who connected with me on Instagram. He wants to be a some kind of coach. I think it was a executive coach or something like that. And he said, I just don't understand why I don't get any interest in my coaching. Could you help me out? So I looked at his post, and it was as clear as day. If it wasn't a photo of Gary Vee, it was a video of Gary Vee, and occasionally some motivational quote or meme from someone else. And so I said to him, why the hell would I buy coaching from you? Because I know I have nothing to connect me to you. You are a regurgitation machine for Gary Vaynerchuk. He's laughing right now because everyone's sharing his stuff. He doesn't need much help getting all his notoriety. It makes more sense if you're trying to promote the value of you to share you. And I was being brutal and a few other things I said as well. But it was nice because then the following day, I saw like his first video of himself. It's like, quite finally, if you want someone to work with you one-on-one as a coach, well, share you. People don't even know who you look like at the moment. And if you are, and I'm not going to poo-poo, using memes and quotes and things like that, and or even Gary Vaynerchuk shares and so on. If you're going to share someone's content, put your opinion as well. So whenever I used to do this, I would share something if I felt it was valuable. I would write at the top, I'm sharing this because, or I feel this about it, or I kind of disagree with this or whatever, because people are showing up on your channel for you. Imagine if I answered every one of these questions from you today with, well, Gary Vaynerchuk would say this. You're not showing up for Gary Vaynerchuk, you're showing up for my opinion on things. And so it makes sense to do the same. And I think that that's very important. So with that in mind, that's why my instinctive reaction is to like say, well, why would you do that kind of thing? As much as you can, especially in the startup world, people need to know about what's going on in your world. They need to fall in love with the culture and vibe around what you're doing. And therefore, your own native original content is usually a better way of going, I feel. Otherwise, you're regurgitating other people's stuff. Every so often it's fine because it might reinforce a thing you do, you know, a point you make. I occasionally do it on Instagram. I'll share someone else's content because it sits in line with the thing I do, but it's overwhelmingly my content. It is my channel. They're all my channels in the sense that I'm sharing the way I do, the way I see the world. And I think that being expressive is augmented sometimes by sharing other people's stuff, but you lose the signal somewhat. And remember, if you're just a promotion machine for someone else, then what are you? And it means that people don't get the real you. They don't understand you, because everyone has a voice. Don't think, well, that person says it better than me, so I should put their voice instead. People want to hear your voice. And no matter how much better other people are than you, there will be some people out there, I have found this, there'll be some people out there who think you're bloody marvelous. There may not be many, but that doesn't matter. I have people who in the past have said, there's this famous person that does a similar product to you. I bought your one. And the reason why is I believe in your stuff. And I'm like, really? Okay, fine. And that's because they're bought into you. It's as simple as that. So no matter how great someone else is, some people will buy your stuff. And of course, vice versa as well. Daniel have asked a question here. Can you differentiate content that consoles or comforts versus content that challenges? I've had this discussion with Ian over the weekend. I think I've got good at attracting, but I haven't mastered the close. Okay, I think can you, let's look at this question again. Can you differentiate content that comforts against content that challenges? I think what you're saying is you're talking about content that makes someone feel good, comfort, and then it's difficult. Guys, be really clear with your question. Sorry if I don't get it. I'm maybe missing the point, Daniel. I think what you're asking here is, can you use different content that makes you feel comfortable, or content that challenges you as the content creator? If that's what you're saying, then my answer would be is look at what you're good at, look at what you're not good at. Now, it's cliche to say only do what you're good at, because actually what you're not as good at, it might be that you can hack that. So for instance, if you don't feel you're great at speaking, but you are great at video, so writing, but you are good at video, so download the audio and transcribe it. Okay, I use Subtile, for example, and you can download the transcription. That's how I made my first downloadable ebook. Which no one reads ebooks anymore, but you know, when I did the downloadable PDF ebook thing a few years back, it was just from a live thing I'd done. I downloaded the audio, sent it to a VA to transcribe, and I've got myself a book. Some people don't have the patience for it. Some people, I'm going to sit down and do a podcast every week. I haven't yet. I'm sure I could find time for it, but I'm not finding time to do my podcast. So it's the downloaded audio from this Q&A, which is what a lot of people have asked for anyway, because they're not going to sit and watch Instagram when they're driving their car. So now I can listen to the podcast. If you go to therichardmoore.com, you can see the catalogue of podcasts, and this one goes up later today. So hopefully that helps. Just want to shout out to a few people on Instagram. What the world needs is I think we were talking a little earlier last week, so thanks so much for jumping in. Dreamcatcher Lab, hello. Manuela, hello, good to see you as well. Angelina, Angie, Nice to see you too. Witness My Run, Paula and Luisin Mirabi. Nice to see you as well on here. Daniel, you've added here calls to action versus patting people on the back. I think what you're asking there is back on your question. Should we be using content that's calls to action versus patting people in the back? I'm sorry, I'm lost, my man. I think, yeah, you should be using calls to action in your content. Let's talk about this bit. Calls to action don't have to be buy my stuff. Calls to action could easily be, if you're interested in more or want more, question mark, this is what I often do at the end of videos. If you want more, click on, go to richardmoore.com. Or call to action might be subscribe to my channel. So those of you on YouTube and so on, subscribe to my channel, please. So your call to action can be nice and soft, in knowing that if that person keeps seeing more of your content, they're going to get even more warmed up and end up wanting to buy from you because they end up, checking out your website and so on. So that's a good way of looking at it. Your call to action doesn't have to be so aggressive or direct. It really doesn't at all. Because people want to check you out, they're curious. That's really useful to have. Andy Diaz, hello there. Thanks so much for joining in, as well as Chad Arell on Facebook. Let's have a little poll here. Where's everyone from? So give us a little post on Instagram. We've got several people there, and also on Facebook. Where are you all based? Drop in your location and a like, and we'll see where you are. I'm putting my money on it being mostly the US. We often get one person from the UK who I think is sitting on YouTube right now. So let's go do maybe one more question. Who have I missed? Yeah, so Devon Scott. How often should you test new styles of content? Okay, so if there are new styles, you should use them. I think you should also, it's with any testing, like you need to give things a fair chance. Test a number of things. Don't just test if the content gets engagement, because sometimes content needs to have several people or it needs to have several iterations, or there needs to be lots of different posts over maybe weeks and months for people to get the hang of what you're doing. But the thing to consider with new types of content is it might be that it doesn't really work with you. It might be that you just, running a podcast, for example, is time consuming. You got to get the guests. You got to sit down and do it. You got to produce it and do all the social. It might be like I'm not finding the time for this. So actually, I could try to do this new style of content, but that's not going to happen. I'm really interested in doing a Twitch channel soon, and I think that might be quite interesting to try out. But you should try everything because you just don't know. I think if you haven't done a video, if you suggest you have anything to do with marketing or sales or business, or if you're doing any kind of content creation, to not have tried video. If the reason is that you're nervous or scared, that's not good enough. You need to find a way around it, because that's not a business reason for not doing something. I spoke to a company recently, and one of the departments really could have learned from the resources of another department, and they weren't connecting. And the reason why was I remember asking, I was like, why are you not over there finding out some information because it's going to help you sell your product? And they said, oh, we don't really get on very well. And I thought, imagine if your CEO's in the room right now saying that. Imagine that. But that's not a business reason for it. It needs to be a business reason, not personal. Sorry, we don't get on. No worries. Well, this is important for the business. So get over it. This is so important. And I think it's the same here. A lot of us don't at least try something because of fear or something like that. We'll find reasons not to. It's not what you're doing is you're putting how you feel in front of what the business requires, which is selfish, in my opinion. And in fact, if you have people working for you, now it's unethical, because that's the way I square this with myself is if you decide to not pull your weight one day and you've got people working with you or relying on you or customers and so on, that's unethical, because what you're doing is just saying, I choose to be selfish and put how I feel in front of what the business and its customers require, which is an interesting skew on what your priorities should really be, in my opinion. So I think with this in mind, you should be testing new styles of content because you don't know if it's going to be the next thing that really helps you. I tested LinkedIn in March. It's really helped me a lot. And if you're nervous, you need to try anyway, or find a way around it. I'm not saying for everyone just jump in and do it, because it might be that you feel nervous about that, so you need to find a different way of doing it. So, but I do think that you need to give things a fair crack of the whip as well. So if you say, I'm going to try long copy, so try long copy a lot for a long time and see how it goes. Not once. It needs to be a lot of pieces. I think also looking at other platforms is wise. Well, I dabbled with Vero earlier in the year just to see, and it's kind of gone in a slightly different direction. It's not really the right fit for me. Even Ello, when was that? 2016 or something? It was like, okay, let's have a look, and this is, it's still going, but it's just not really right for my space right now. And I think I think if you, as I said, it's really good opportunity, this question, to say, remember to look at your hacks of weaknesses. There are hacks you can get into that will help with areas you feel you're deficient in. As I say, if you're really good at speaking, download a transcription. Now you've got a long copy post. If you don't have the time or don't think it's going to happen to do a blog, it doesn't have to be long copy. It can be short. If images aren't your forte, but you do video, so then take a screen grab, and there's a lot of things you can do that can work with that. So yeah, you should be testing new styles of content when they come out. You should, if I can add to this, be experimenting along the way as well. One thing I think I'm fairly well known for is I will happily sacrifice content, and therefore it's that post's engagement. I will happily sacrifice it in the name of experimenting. So almost every piece of content, if you look at, for instance, on LinkedIn, I will always experiment with one little thing here or there. I gave a seminar on LinkedIn on Thursday last week, and I made the point, because they asked me about sharing, similar to the question we had earlier today. And they said, what are your thoughts on sharing other people's content? Because this is how this company was tanking. They weren't doing as well because they were just spamming their own stream with their own content. I said, rather than just sharing, you should post your own native content. And it was very interesting, because just to check in, because I get very good engagement on LinkedIn. The other day I shared a post, and it was a really strong post. It was like, it went really well, and it did terribly, probably a quarter of the engagement I normally get. And I thought to myself, I could listen to other people, or let's just check in again, let's just see how that works. I was under no illusions that it probably wasn't going to work. I thought it's worth just checking in again to see. It's done really badly. So I think that it's worth checking in every so often as well, because things change. It might be that you think, oh, I did articles on, if we stay with LinkedIn, I did articles on LinkedIn a while back and they don't really get engagement. Well, there seems to be this resurgence of interest in the articles, so go back in and try them out. You need to go back in every so often. Okay. Thank you so much. Some really cool messages here. Dreamcatcher Lab, based in London from Italy. Awesome. Nice to see you there. So join us on Wednesday next week. You go to therichardmoore.com. It'd be great to see you at the event at Entrepreneur Business Live next Wednesday near Liverpool Street. Route 1 million, I saw your feed. I think it's the route to $1 million or something like that, or it must be pounds. Lincolnshire, middle of England. I can't see your flag you put up there. Great content, Richard, immense value per minute rate. Thank you very much. And then we had a couple of questions here on Facebook, so let's get into these. Michael Getty has asked, what books can I read that will educate me on how to set up pages for using social media content? I have your course on LinkedIn, but nothing else. So company pages, for instance, on LinkedIn, you could check out Michaela Alexis. She on Facebook, she's a friend connected with me. She's just released a course on that. You could also look, YouTube will help you set it up, but nothing beats experimenting. Just always look at intuition. What am I looking at here? UX is the term, user experience. What is their journey actually like? If someone's seeing great content, what would make them want to click on your page or check you out or go onto your website? What is going to make them do there's this test called the eye roll test. So if you look at the content you're producing, if you look at the page you're creating, does it have the eye roll, as in, oh, this stuff, from someone you're actually trying to target? Because, for instance, someone said it to me recently. Some of your content, Richard, I think is a bit too it would be a bit too spammy for me. I wouldn't really engage with it. It's like, it's fine, because you're not the kind of person I'm trying to engage with. The people I want to engage with do get it, and that's fine. And that's how you need to look at it as well. The people I really want to target, the ideal customers, how do I make sure that they look at this page? Am I giving them what they would need? That's really important. You can look at books, but if I'm honest with you, Michael, books by now, if they're released now, it's rare a book released now is going to give you the cutting edge things that work for December in 2018. It moves at such pace that the people who know what they're doing, the practitioners, they are live doing it right now. And they may be writing books, and some books will be generic enough to be fairly evergreen, but in 6 months from now, different things will have changed. My best approach to this is put down the books for this one, go and find those that are doing great, and reverse engineer. So it's so easy on platforms now to see people's activities, certainly on LinkedIn and on Facebook. So when do they post? Who are they probably targeting? What kind of posts they do? One thing you could easily do is say, right, this person who is, like a god compared with me, I will do the same kind of stuff in my page. My newsletter that comes out in will be 4.5 hours. My newsletter is a reverse engineer of Gary Vaynerchuk's newsletter. Why? Because his newsletter gets loads of really good engagement. You can tell it's a really strong newsletter. So why wouldn't you reverse engineer from that? It's got tweaks, of course, but reverse engineer, start from there. So look at the great company pages. When do they post? What kind of posts they do? Start noting down the ratio. So are they doing 2 live videos a week, 14 text-based posts, how many images, and there'll probably be some kind of a plan or schedule, and just emulate that. They're talking about these things, I'll copy in the sense I'll talk about something similar. It's a really great way of doing it. I think going to things like books and that, it's almost like they're dated by the time they're published. Of course, there'll be exceptions, but it's a rare thing that will happen, and they'll be authentically and useful right now, because things will move on too much, I suppose. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But I think if you're talking about setting up pages for social media content, it is worth looking at other people. Plus, those doing great, they've got a webinar, they've got a course. You don't have to look too far for them. If you look on YouTube as well, if you're literally green, not knowing where to start, get on YouTube. It'll give you the basics. People are falling over themselves to give you advice on that kind of stuff in order to get views and subscribe. So I think it's a good place to start and go from there. But you'll never know till you're on it doing things. There are some obvious best practices as you go. Make sure the people can find you, and when they click on things, they go to where they should go. Make sure that there's content that's relevant. Make sure it's regular. Make sure it's consistent, abundant, relevant, and engaged. So the care approach to things as well is all there. Make sure you're engaging with the people. And if it's pages on things like Facebook, you got to pay money as well, because the organic reach on company pages is basically rubbish. So you should be paying some bit of money out as well. My opinion on that, just as an aside, is this is what we do, put money, instead of adverts to promote a product or service, put money on adverts, kind of sponsored if you like, but put money on your content. What it means is, if you've got a great piece of content, promote that through ads. Because if people think your content's great, the value thing, because they're so averse to adverts now, promote content instead, and that will get people clicking through to find out more about you. So you're advertising your great value-based content. You're not advertising your product. You're working on basis if enough people go in the funnel, they will then work their way through to the product. It works. My organic selling is really good, I think, because that works quite well. Ian's asked a question here on Facebook. How often should you be posting per platform? What's worked for you? I think you should post at least twice a day on Facebook, perhaps 3 times a day. If you've got something good to say, then fine. If you have a crap thing to say, don't post. Find something good to say. Instagram, it's the stories for me. That's the thing that really makes the difference. So I post at most once a day on the actual post feed for Instagram. You can of course post more. When you're starting, you should be doing 3 to 6 a day, I think, because I rely on my audience and I rely on my stories and hashtags, because actually a post is dead within 3 hours on LinkedIn pretty much, unless it trends right away. LinkedIn, I post once a day. You can post several times a day. I know people who post every few hours on LinkedIn. Once a day seems to be working fine for me. It's not even once a day, it's probably 5 days a week. And that's working really well. But with LinkedIn, the game is the DMs, you know. So of course people show up for that content because I'm engaging with people all the time, a good hour cumulatively every day of engaging with people one-on-one. So that's worked really well for me. They're the 3 main platforms I use now. Twitter I've left alone considerably, so I don't feel I should comment on that. And you know, Snapchat is not a space I'm operating in much now either. So yes, those platforms are probably relevant, but right now I can put a lot of effective time with my team on these 3 main ones. So that's my answer there. Brandy Brandy Holloway said, I've seen lately that dropping links in your content on Facebook decreases visibility. Is it better to place in the comments? True, 100%. What Facebook's doing is it's drawing itself, or the usage of Facebook, back to being pure social. What Facebook wants you to do is 2 things. Share social stuff. So a picture of little Wendy having her christening photos, that's what you should be sharing on it. What it also doesn't want you to do, think about it, Facebook doesn't want you to send its users off its platform, okay? So even sharing a link elsewhere in Facebook doesn't work effectively, but putting a link in suggests to the algorithm, if you like, suggests to Facebook, I'm trying to get people to do things, and that potentially is a spammy approach to using it. As a result, it throttles you heavily, and you can be pretty shadow banned on it. So if I post, if I had this video uploaded natively, it'll do great. It'll do several hundred views. Whereas if I upload a video to Facebook rather than doing it natively from, say, YouTube, it will get like no views at all. It'll get like 4 views and it'll be rubbish, because I'm sending traffic away. If I write on it, be careful here as well, Brandy. If I write in a post things like linking comments, well, of course it knows about, you know, they'll know about that as well. If I write in a post things like like and comment below, you're going to get flagged as well. So yes, but they're all along the same lines. You know, it's trying to game the platform for engagement. It used to work all the time, but not at all now. If you're genuinely just sharing great social stuff, it tends to do really well. The other day when I was at Facebook, I went to Facebook's office in London. I posted a picture because they've got a life size 6 foot model of I think it was Michelangelo, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, in the lobby. So I did a sidekick up against him. You should check it out. And that got so much engagement because it's just a bit of fun and it's social. I didn't put comment amazing Richard if you like this photo, because if you do something like that, it will throttle you alone. Or here's me kicking ass. Click go to my website to see me kicking more ass. It will get throttled. So I strongly suggest you don't put a link in the actual caption itself. If you must put a link in, yeah, the comments probably works better. There are probably some more people who know even more about this than I would. Over on Instagram, MC Wright has asked, so how would one promote their content, such as writing and things of that nature? Yeah, I think the way to promote your content, if we take Facebook and Instagram, if you take Facebook and Instagram, you should be promoting it. So on Instagram, my posts, one of the reasons why I get good engagement and I can get likes and views and so on is because I put money on the platform because I'm serious about my business doing well from it. So I'm working on engagement that's organic, and I'm winning so well with LinkedIn. But even now, I put some money on as well on the Entrepreneur Business Live page. But yeah, promote your content. Understand that you should be putting some money against the content because it gets you great reach. And imagine, I'm going to sound like Gary Vaynerchuk, who I mentioned earlier now. If I look at 10 years from now, it could be that the world finally realizes that everyone is actually on social, and so the cost of advertising costs so much. I'm working so hard right now to get my audience up and to get the engagement up and to move ahead now whilst it's very underpriced, because in the future I'll be kicking myself if I didn't spend money on content to be pushed out and generate me new people who can advocate for me, fall into orbit around me, and generally engage in the content as new audience, because it'll cost me a hell of a lot more. It's like, you know, I can reach thousands and thousands and thousands of very specific people for a few, like a couple of pounds a day. It's unbelievable. Happy to not have a latte and spend money on, you know, 8,000 people viewing my content on Instagram, for example. But look at distribution that's collaborative as well, MC rights. What I would say is look at those people who are maybe a little notch above you in terms of influencer positioning, or those with an active audience. Get in touch with them, DM them, get on their content, get engaged there, maybe get them on the phone, do a podcast and whatever, but get to a point where they're going to help distribute your content as well. But also look at the reverse. Why would someone want to promote your content? You need to say to yourself, people only share your stuff if it makes them look good. If someone's going to share something, it's usually because it's emotional. You know, it's funny, it's stimulating, it's sad and emotional. It could be something like that. And if there's that if there's that social currency, as it's known, behind your post, people will want to share it more, and that's really important. So yeah, you can write and things like that too. Another idea is look at guest blogging. It's funny, the first time I ever did a guest blog, I was doing it as an experiment. I went to Twitter Advanced Search and wrote, in inverted commas, something like, who wants to guest blog? And it came up with all the tweets of people who are looking for people to guest blog. Brilliant. So I did a load, and then of course, now you're in their network, you're posting on their stuff. People asking all the time, who wants to be on my podcast? There was some the other day, a guy who's just, Brian Wallace, I think it was, who's great on LinkedIn. I was like, yeah, I'll do it, because obviously if it's relevant for you, I'll do it. And so then you get on podcasts, because every time you go and work with other people like that and collaborate, suddenly you're tapping into their network as well. That helps promote the content. But for me, one thing that works really well is across all these platforms, taking your content, not ads, not salesy stuff, just the content itself, the value-laden content, and putting money against it. Because what you're doing is rather than being just organic, you're sending it into the feed to the people who will probably be interested anyway. So hopefully that helps a lot. It's a really good question. Daniel Nunes, you mentioned Michaela Alexis, is Michaela. And good to see everyone on here. I'm just going to check if there's any more questions. Otherwise, we'll finish up there. Hello, Judy Fox. Nice to have you here. Judy Fox is the co-host with myself and Kurt Mercadante in January on the 24th for Entrepreneur Business Live. Let's finish there. It's been a great set of questions from all of you online, in addition to Brandy, Devon, Latanya, Nadine, and Dot. Thank you very much for those questions today. Make sure you keep your eyes peeled for the Entrepreneur Business group later this week, probably on Thursday night in Geneva. It looks like I'll be able to stream, and that'll be fantastic. I can stream the live, the LinkedIn panel discussion I'll be on with 4 others. That'd be good news. And also next Wednesday, if you're in London, Entrepreneur Business Live will be on the 12th. So hopefully see you there. Thanks to everyone. I've got a few comments. I'll do that later. A few comments on YouTube. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining in there. Thank you, everyone, on